Hello everyone, it's me, Ashiro Nerdlife, and as you can see, we're back in the subway for another Railcraft walkthrough. And today we're going to be going over the track types. Now, we're not going to go over all of them. There are too many to go over all of them in one video. We're going to go over quite a bit of them, and these are some of the more basic tracks that you're probably going to start with. There are some more advanced tracks and so forth, but we're going to go over these first just to show you what the heck is going on. Okay, so let's get started because there are a bunch to go through. So, first track we're looking at is called the control track. Now, that's how you build it. All of them are fairly simple, straightforward. As long as you have your setup with your ovens and so forth, you can build most of these pretty easily. Now, this one, all this does is it works like a less powerful booster track, and it works directionally. So these arrows are pointed that way, so it's going to launch the, it's going to push the minecart in that direction. Now, you can use your crowbar, which is pretty much the Railcraft wrench. You're going to need some red dye and some iron, but that's not a big deal, is it? All you need is some red flowers and some iron to build this. You right-click on it, and it will switch direction. It will also interact with a lot of the other tracks to do different options for them as well. And so if you place this on this, unlike the booster track, which boosts in the direction that the minecart hits it, like if it's going in this direction when it hits the booster track, it will boost it in that direction. If it's going in this direction when it hits the booster track, it'll boost it in that direction. This one boosts it in whichever direction. It doesn't give it as much power, but it works really well for certain things. For instance, if I place it here, it's just going to shoot it off. Now let's pick this thing back up. We can use our crowbar to easily one-hit the minecart and pick it up. And what I'm going to do is I'm going to hit this. Now this is called a switch lever. And what it does is it controls this track, which is this one here. This is the switch track. Now what this thing can do is, based on what it is set to, it can either make it go straight and pass through the track, or it can make it turn off and go a different direction. Now that we have it set to turn, watch it. It will go in that direction. Obviously, all this stuff interacts based on red power, so you can do all sorts of awesome stuff. Obviously, we're going to want this now. Now, let's hit the next track. Let's put it back. It'll launch it into this track, and this track is called a boarding track. Obviously, fairly simple. Boarding track is going to stop your cart unless it has a red power current going through it. What this is good for is obviously boarding. So if you have a train station, the cart is going to run until it hits this, and then it's going to stop. And then if there's someone will board it, for instance, and hit this button, and it will send the current and launch it through. Voila. That's the boarding track. A very cool track. I really like that track the most, probably. Now this track is, where is it? There it is. The one-way track, built like so. One of the easier tracks to build. Now what this does is it will essentially put, if it doesn't have a current, it won't do anything. It'll just act like a standard track. If it does have a current, it will push in a certain direction. This is a lot like this track, except it doesn't have an automatic current. For instance, this one's powered. It's going to power either whether it has a redstone current or not. This one isn't. It's going to act the same, but if it's off, it's going to act like a normal track, so it doesn't have any power going to it. It's you can do a lot of stuff with this, obviously. If you turn it on now, if you go down here and put this on here, then hit the button so it goes through, it will bounce back and deny it. Now let's pick it back up, turn that off. Now this is the, where is it? Nope. Let's turn it on. Where's that bastard? Did I not get another one to show you guys? It's right here. It's the holding track. I'll show you what it does. Look at it go. Look at it go. Alright. So, if you power that, I'll show you what it does when it's not powered. It will stop it, obviously. Now, you power it and it boosts it forward again. So basically, holding track holds the cart until you power it. That's pretty much it. It works a lot like a boarding track, pretty much. So nothing to it really. So you want to keep it powered unless you want to stop your cart. Now let's see what's next. Now these two tracks are called gated tracks. This is a gated one-way track, and this is just a standard gated track. Obviously, if a one-way track has it powers exactly like this track here. It powers like the control track. So as long as the cart is going this direction, it'll keep it going. Whereas this track, it doesn't have any power to it. It's just a gated track. Obviously, you're going to have to run a current to this gate if you want it to open and close, based on whatever the case is, and or keep it open. Now, this is obviously good for if you have a fenced area you want a train to go through. You don't want a hole in the fence, obviously. Now, one pro tip for the fencing is you want to build your fence a block over this, because otherwise animals have a possibility of climbing on your cart and using it to jump the fence. So you want to keep the area around your gated tracks up higher, so it's like a little awning over top of your track. That's cool. Now, obviously, this is a good track because it can go no matter which way your cart's going. It's going to act like a standard track. It's just going to keep moving. This one's good for controlling which direction your cart's going when it hits the fence. So that's that. Now I'll show you. I'll let it go all the way through here up to the point. Boom. Okay, we got that. Hit this, and it'll keep going. As you can see, that purple light's lighting up every single time it passes, and we'll get to that in a minute. So up here, we have a launching track, which is probably what everybody's waiting for. Hell yeah. We're going to put this down. We're going to pop it off the disembarking, or the boarding track, that's what it is. When it hits the launching track, it launches it into the air. That's pretty sweet. And that's good for jumps, all sorts of stuff. Mostly jumps. That's pretty much what it's for, is jumping. Then we got a booster track, goes around. You got another booster track to keep the momentum. And then we've got a detector track. I'll go ahead and put it right here. And as you can see, it'll hit that. And then when it goes over it, it sends out electric current in all directions. And since there's a redstone lamp sitting next to it, it lights the lamp up. Now this is good for a whole lot of stuff. You can do a ton of stuff with this. This is like, and this is a vanilla track as well, pretty much. So it's like the detector rail. It's called a detector track, and it has a modified. All that really changes is that they modified the recipe to go with the Railcraft type recipes, and that's pretty much a core piece to any sort of really intelligent train track. For instance, you can maybe run a redstone current from here all the way up to your gate, so when it hits the detector track, it'll open the gate up, and then when you hit another detector track, it'll close the gate on the other side, etc. Pretty sweet. This one is which one is it? I think it's a disembarking track. Yeah. So let's get in this bastard, and it's on, so it should work. And as you can see, when I hit this track, it kicked me out, and that's pretty much the whole point of it. So for instance, if you have a railway station, right, you have two tracks, one for incoming and one for outgoing. So this is my incoming track, or my outgoing track, so the guy will board it and get on and ride to wherever he wants to go. Along the way, each stop will have a boarding track, and they can either choose to get off at the boarding track or stay on and hit the button again to keep going to the next stop. And then you constantly have incoming mine carts, so that they'll always have a mine cart on the boarding track ready to go. Obviously, you can have a switch to make it go over here, and that way you have two, and it won't be a big clog up of tracks. Or you could just have a bunch of these control tracks powering it into the back of this boarding track. Now, then you have a disembarking track on your incoming train. So right before, say, your boarding track, so that it kicks the person out, or whatever the case is. And you have you can do all sorts of stuff with it. If you want the person to immediately get out of it, for instance, you have like a roller coaster that launches the cart into lava or something at the end, and it kicks them out right before it launches it into the lava. Awesome, pretty intense, Indiana Jones type shit. Now you have a booster track, hits this, and then it goes to this track. So let's do that. We'll do right here, and it'll climb. And elevator track is exactly what you think. It works like a ladder for your minecart. You can ride it up, you can ride it down. Now, it's a little bit finicky. You can't just make it go and directly into a turn or anything. You have to give it some space because it will jump a bit as it comes out, and it will also lose a lot of speed. So you're going to want to put booster tracks like I have here, so it'll keep going forward. Now these are called suspended tracks. I believe that's the name of it. Yeah, suspended track, and obviously they can float over nothing. They work almost exactly like the scaffolding in Feed the Beast, so that they can only go 2 out by themselves, and then you have to give it a pillar or something. And they are also a little bit finicky, so you can also place them on the ground if you want the tracks to look broken, because that's what they look like. But that's pretty much them. That's what those are for. Now down here I have a couple tracks I didn't have hooked up because I didn't think that there was really enough room for me to show you exactly what they do adequately. This is called a fuse or a priming track, and all this really does is if it has a red power current and it's powered, it will light the fuse of a TNT cart on its way past, and you can set it for different ticks, however long you want the fuse to be. And obviously a TNT cart will detonate if it hits a wall, so if you have a launching track or something like that, it's going to hit the ground and blow up. If you have a wall that it's going to run into, it's going to blow up. But if it doesn't, if you don't have any of those things, this thing will trigger the fuse and it'll blow up exactly when you want it to based on that. This is called a junction track. That one's this here, one of the easier ones to make. Now all this does is really let you cross tracks. So if you have tracks that are going to intersect like that, it'll keep going through, they can intersect without messing up your tracks. For instance, over here, if you put a track here, it's going to break the track that direction, whereas if you had a junction track here, it would allow it to keep going. And I'll even show you that. Boom. So now the track will keep going this direction without breaking into the turn. And that's pretty much the entire purpose of a junction track. Okay, so as a brief overview, we've got the control track. It boosts it a light boost in the direction the arrows are going. Then we got a booster track. It'll boost it harder boost in the direction that it is moving when it hits the track. Then we've got a boarding track, which will stop the cart, and or unless it has a red power current, which will stop it, and then you can hit this, and it will shoot your track off and in the direction. Now this is the what is this called again? Shit, I can't remember what it's called. It's the one-way track. It basically will either power it in one direction and make it boost, or it will slow it down as it passes to the point of, a lot of the times, unless the cart's going super fast, that it will make it bounce back the other direction because it powered. It's essentially like this track, except it doesn't have if it doesn't have a current in it, it will act as if it is a regular track, whereas this one is always on unless you, and all it does when you power it with a red power current is it makes it switch the opposite direction. Then you got the junction track, which lets you cross tracks. Then you've got the stop track thingy, the holding track, which is actually a little bit different than this track because it'll stop it really hard. It's a hard stop, and if it's powered, it will boost it through. Then we got the gated tracks, which lets you go through fenced areas with a fencing gate. You can right click on open and close it. Obviously, any sort of doors are opening and closing can be open and closed with red power current. So that's how you would manifest an automatic gated track. Then you've got the one-way gated track, which will power the cart through it as it comes through, or stop it if it's going the opposite direction, obviously, and power it backwards a little bit. Now this one is the launcher track. If you power it, it will make your cart jump. Pew! And you should be able to right click on it and decide the force, which is obviously going to decide how far up it'll launch it and thus how far it will go. Got another booster track here. Oh, that was weird. Got a little bit of lag there. And another booster track here. Then you got a detector track, which will, detector track, which when it detects a cart over top, it launches a redstone current through, which will light a lamp or open a door or whatever you hook the redstone up to. Then you've got this track, which is the, where is it again? No. Where is that bastard at? This one. Disembarking Track. It kicks you off when you pass over it. Got another booster track, got another control track. Elevator track lets you elevate like a ladder for your mine carts. Got more booster and control tracks, and then you've got these suspended tracks, which lets you suspend it without anything underneath it. Then you've got your fuse tracks, your priming rails, which will prime TNT carts as it goes over it. And then you've got nothing. We've already done all these, so that's pretty much it. And don't forget your switch lever if you want to use this track, which is the switch track. Forgot to do that again. So hopefully I described this enough. I know there's a lot to go through. I probably should have just limited this to a few tracks to be able to go more in depth into each one, but hopefully you've learned a lot of the basics for each track. And if you have any questions, please feel free to leave a comment, and I'll try to go in more depth if you need a little bit more help. And until next time, this has been Ash here on Nerd Life with a Railcraft Part 3. Until next time, play on, play us.